Hello and welcome to Zen Mood HQ. It's 1 in the morning, but I couldn't wait to review this book. It's the book I was looking forward to most heading into 2022, and it is the beautiful IAO, which, as we can see here, is on Ophite Iconography by the incredible artist, author, José Gabriel Alegría Sabogal. I hope I pronounced his name right because I have the most deep reverence for him. He produced a masterpiece and it really delivered. So please stick around and let me know if you read this book as well, what your thoughts were on it. I first heard about this book getting an email from Anathema Publishing. Yao is an iconographic proposal, an attempt to illustrate the Gnostic worldview and its myths as understood by the Ophites, a sect of which little is known. It is perhaps an exercise of imagination of what Christian iconography could have resembled if the Ophites had survived. And when you're dealing with esoteric topics, much of it is going to be rooted in abstraction. And to make sense of the abstraction, images, symbols, icons are produced. And so this is a book that is creating such deep imagery, rich imagery of Gnostic imagery, the Ophites imagery. And I think the artist did an incredible job in doing this. At the end of the book, he actually has a he calls it a discourse with William Blake, and I'm a huge fan of William Blake as well. And those images are just absolutely beautiful. But for the first part of the book, I'm actually going to describe it here just so you can kind of get an idea of it. He has, and this is in the index here, the world as a reflection, Sophianic figures, the image of the Pleroma, an appendix, the Sibylline dialogues, an imaginary conversation with William Blake, and then transcription and translation of those dialogues. The beginning of the book was it was incredible. I learned so much. It was going through Basilids and Origen, these hugely influential Christian fathers, figures, their lineage back to Christ himself, and what their teachings were. And I've read many of these works, and the nuance of how complex this is was largely lost on me. I didn't realize how much I didn't know until I read this book because of how much I learned from this author. I was so excited to get this book. I was partly a little worried, like, would this book live up to the hype that I was putting behind it? And it did. It did more so than that. I will be rereading this book over and over and over again to learn more. So just breaking down these subject matters. The first one here, like I mentioned, the world as reflection of the deforming mirror and the theophanies of the past and the future, which are all emblems of human ignorance. And I apologize if I appear very tired. I am rather tired. I literally just got done reading this. And I'm not going to be showing all the images of the book. It is copyright protected, and I want to certainly respect the publisher and the author here. And I can't recommend getting this book enough. I got the book directly from the publisher. I'd recommend doing that as well. Secondary market sales for this are going to probably be very high as people mark it up. I went right to Anathema Publishing and purchased it directly from them. I recommend you do the same. I believe the book, I had pre-ordered it, so it might have been a discount for the pre-order, but it was around $200. I'm not sure what it is right now. And I know normally I talk about the aesthetics of the book initially. We're going to be jumping kind of right into the contents of the book actually this time. And so I'm not going to be showing all the images. However, I can't recommend them enough. They've changed me. I mean, I was at the edge of my seat every page of this book in just immersed in this. It's just beautiful. It's incredible. And so some of this I just had no idea. It gives you such a more profound appreciation for these symbols as he's essentially creating iconography and then taking the time to elaborate and explain the deep meaning behind the symbols. The second part of the book, part two, on the Sophianic figures, is of the female visions of the divine, crystallizations of sacred knowledge. And this has a lot to do, of course, with Sophia, who we come across in Proverbs chapter 8, where she says that she was there at the creation of the worlds, and also in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1. The images again here are amazing, beautiful. There's one thing in particular that I thought I would share. I don't want to like read excerpts from the book because, again, it is copyright protected. There's a summary by another author, C.W. King, The Gnostics and Their Remains, Ancient and Medieval, and this was published in 1887. And I'm going to just read this brief summation I just found beautiful. It's not by the actual author. However, I can't recommend enough the writing of this author. Absolutely a work of genius in my estimation. Anyways, let me just read this summary by C.W. King here because it's a beautiful summary. The grand doctrine of Gnosticism was this: the soul, on being released from the body, its prison house and place of torment, has to pass through the regions of the seven powers, which it cannot do unless impregnated beforehand with knowledge. Otherwise, it is seized upon and swallowed by the dragon-formed ruler of this world, Satan Ophiomorphous, and voided forth through his tail upon earth again, where it animates a swine or some such beast, and repeats its career once more. But should it be filled with knowledge, it eludes the seven powers, and tramples upon the head of Sabaoth, of whom they say he hath the hair of a woman, and mounts up unto the eighth heaven, the abode of Barbello, the universal mother, and who, according to the Pistis Sophia, is the celestial mother of the Savior. End quote. And for something that has to be one of the most complex origin stories, and the Gnostic system is certainly not easy. I thought that was a beautiful summary. There's another part here too that just put chills in me. I am going to just read this. This was when in the temple, Moses's brother Aaron, of course, if you recall, Aaron was the one that threw his staff on the ground to battle the Pharaoh's sorcerers. Their staffs turned into serpents. His staff turned into a serpent and devoured the other serpents. He mentions this as being symbolic of pharmakon, a poison that's healing, okay? Which, again, he makes the case for John the Baptist calling out that the Pharisees were a pit of vipers, and then Christ saying in John 3:14 that he needs to be lifted up like the snake. Also, if you think about it, of Moses in Numbers chapter 21, where in Numbers 21, Moses lifts up the bronze serpent, and those that were bit by the snakes could be healed in the same manner as Christ being lifted up, being the one to heal the soul. There's obviously some deep symbolism behind the snake, the universal snake, the snake in Hebrew, Nikesh from the garden. And of course, the Gnostics had great reverence for the snake. One could think of the snake as shedding its skin, being reborn in pure form, just like the symbolic rebirth of Christ. Obviously, many believe in the hypostatic union, but one could think of him shedding his old self and being reborn, the God-man, as he was resurrected from the cross. Anyways, let me at least get to this page at hand. I'm going way off the rails. Anyways, the Moses's brother Aaron here, this is what gave me chills. And this story is just something else. And when we think of the priests like Melchizedek and the obviously Aaron, there was like that idea of the warrior priest, which or one thing, or king priest, I should say, even. And we see in Hebrews where they talk about that as well. Well, Aaron had two sons, right? Moses' brother Aaron. Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense, and they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses then said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord spoke of when he said, 'Among those who approach me, I will be proved holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored.'" Aaron remained silent. And that gave me chills. He had an image of the Demiurge with Aaron's two sons being consumed by fire. And what's really fascinating is this isn't mentioned in here, but in the Sefer Bahir, which is part of the Hebrew canon, they mention how, of course, in Hebrew, the heavens described in Genesis are of fire. And it's rather, funny that we think of hell as being fire as well. But one of the concepts that's kind of being put forward here is that if you recall, Elijah and Enoch, they ascended in fire, right? And so he makes the case here that the normal interpretation of this is that Aaron's two sons did something wrong, and that God is, a jealous God, and he was the Demiurge, was, if you think of it, kind of a bloodthirsty, and I don't mean that in a crude way. I mean, if you think about Genesis chapter 4, where he didn't accept Cain's offering, right? He accepted Abel's offering because it needed to be a blood offering. It was them actually doing this initiation right through fire, not using the actual fire that was holy, a foreign fire, that they were consumed. And so he says, what was the right of Nadab and Abihu? God knows. And they blurred the distinction between sacred and profane. Perhaps we could understand this strange fire as their own spirits being too daring. Just beautiful. This book put some new terminology as well on my radar that I wasn't familiar with. One being perichoresis, perichoresis, which is a word I will be using more and more now that I know about it. It is a term referring to the relationship of the three persons of the triune God to one another. And he goes a great deal into that and into some of the concepts that, of course, are heretical to orthodoxy or to the Catholic or mainstream denominations. I think that this book is going to age well. As far as it goes aesthetically, it has these beautiful end papers. There's a just absolutely amazing image on it. The end papers, likewise, at the very end of the book, just gorgeous. The paper is acid resistance. It's got this texture to it. I mean, honestly, when I opened the book, the first thing that I noticed was actually the smell. I mean, and I know it sounds really corny, but this book smells incredible. I have never had a book smell as good as this book. I know it's a bizarre thing to say in a book review. I've never talked about how a book smells before. If anything, I typically think they might smell a little musty if I'm getting one used, but this book smelled incredible. So this paper stock is just, it's incredible. So it's got such a bizarre texture to it. So it makes the images just beautiful. Boy, some of these other images in here as well. Obviously, the Abraxas gemstones are mentioned in here. See an image of one of them here, as well as the jackal head being crucified, and that was actually a symbol of reverence, one could think of, although people thought of it as blasphemous. It's like a reproduction of a photo there. It's not his, so I can share that one. But his dedication to the book too, like, it just got me. I now love this author. I didn't realize how much I would just, at least I love their work here, to say the least. To the memory of my father, who always despised my mystical ramblings, here they are. I love his mystical ramblings. I learned so much from him. Uh, I want to see if it mentions here. The font of the book is incredible. It's just everything was done so well. There's so many different colors as well in this book. I mean, I might have counted like five or six, which means they used a ton of different plates for this book. And so the way his images are too, it's typically like black and white, and then they'll just be like red in the image or blue in the image, and so those colors just really pop out. And anyways, it says here as well, the first printing is limited to approximately 900 hand-numbered standard edition hardcover copies, and then 400 signed collector's editions. So I got one of the 400, obviously, and my copy is number 38. It's actually autographed by the author, José Gabriel, and I just have so much respect for him. Yeah, so the text was set in Nicomedia, Ephes, Rome, Marco, and Elise. I wasn't really super familiar with some of these fonts, but it works. If you're wondering, what does IAO stand for? It was mentioned in the Pistis Sophia. But I do want to just say the more popular, well, that's the Gnostic way, which of course this is a Gnostic book, so that's probably the most important interpretation of IAO, but, and it's really pronounced EAO. But the IAO, how I first came across it was actually through doing ceremonial work through the Lux ritual, or the ritual of the light, or the ritual of the keyword. If you think about Christ on the cross, above his head, the INRI in Hebrew, Yud Nun Resh Yud, INRI, Yud Nun Resh Yud. And so the password, if you will. And IAO then would be I for Isis, O for, or I'm sorry, I for Isis. It's 1:12 in the morning, so bear with me. I for Isis, A for Apophis, and then O for Osiris. Isis, the mother of the sun. Also, Sophia could be a representation of Sophia. Sophia, as well as is mentioned here, could also be a representation of the Whore of Babylon. Kind of that the it's kind of similar to that pharmacon concept, where it's breaking the duality, which is, you know, the most noble of aims. It's the philosopher's stone. But anyways, Isis, the mother of the sun, Apophis, the destroyer, Typhoon, another name for that god-like character, the destroyer, and then Osiris, the redeemer. And obviously Christ is the redeemer, the perfect image of the redeemer. And so this book will age very, very well, because I'm going to be reading it over and over and over again. So this will be in my library forever. I think their images are stunning. I read through the book. I literally got the book yesterday, and I read through it, and I really read through it slowly. I know it might seem fast to read through the book in only you know, a day and a half, but it was really me being really methodical. Every time he mentioned a verse in scripture, I would go and double check the scripture, and I would read it. Like, I'm gonna give an example of one that's like, it gave me chills. I actually posted it on my Instagram. I recommend, if you're on Instagram, ZenMode HQ, please subscribe to my Instagram. It's so humble. I think I don't even have 100 people following me. Got 0 likes for this post, but anyways, Jesus said unto them in Luke 10:18, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. And then we have Matthew 24:27, for as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Again, another example similar to that duality, of breaking the duality. another concept of this pharmacon. And the pharmacon is it's in philosophy and critical theory is a composite of three meanings: remedy, poison, and scapegoat, which I think is very appropriate, all three of those meanings in a sense. And so certainly when one thinks of the snake, and then this, the snake that's basically taking out all the other snakes. And it wasn't just the Ophites either that went through. There was other sects of the Gnostics were so diverse, and there was other sects as well that were mentioned in here. He has the Ophite diagram in here that was so incredible. I might end up buying that as well for my wall. He talks as well about Moses appearing in the Vulgata, translated from the Hebrew Keren, which means raise or horns. And so if you're reading, of course, Moses, and actually William Blake's first book of Urizen in 1794 was displayed in this manner with Moses with horns. And I think that's really interesting. And if you think about it, when Moses descended, of course, from Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments, it was saying how he had to cover himself, and then when he would go before the divine, his countenance, he would take off his mask or his shroud, and then when he was around the people, he would put it on. This is obviously symbolic of priestly dignity. That was Exodus 7:8-12. Oh no, that was when Moses and Aaron confronted the Egyptian sorcerers. I also have a beautiful image that I got from the British Museum on my Instagram of that as well. But yeah, the one thing too, he has parts of this from Origin. I've been reading on Origin, not because of the contents in here per se, but keep in mind the Christians believed in reincarnation up until the Second Council of Constantinople. Maybe not all Christians, but certainly many Christians. And then they banned the writings of Origin, or they didn't ban it per se, but you weren't allowed to read it unless you were a priest. And then he also mentions Basilids of Alexandria, who Carl Jung was, I believe even in the Seven Sermons of the Dead, Carl Jung writes it as though he was Basilids. I could be wrong, but if memory serves right, he says that that's who he is. It's like his pen name for it, but Basilids of Alexandria, disciple of Glaucius, disciple of Peter, disciple of Christ. And you can see that just very clear line between them. And Basilids obviously was a Gnostic church father, church leader. And so many think too of the Gnosticism as like a derivative of Christianity, not realizing it was Christianity. It was, of course, they were killed off, by the time of like the year 340, and you had, the Council of Nicaea, and I know people act like Constantine was just the emperor. Constantine presided over that. Constantine literally threw his weight around, and he had bishops who weren't even baptized, shaping Christian dogma that is in place to this day. And they absolutely killed the Gnostics. They killed them off. So anyways, as Jung said, Sophia is returning, right? And so this is a book that I think is absolutely a 10 out of 10. And these excerpts. I mean, I will be rereading this. I almost want to reread it right now again and again. I could go on and on. There's just so much into this. He has excerpts too from Doubting Thomas, from the Apocrypha of Nicodemus. I have a complete reading of the Apocrypha of Nicodemus already on this channel, if you haven't read that already. It's just so much to go through here. The visions of Marcus the Magus. So anyways, at this point, I'm going to his image too of the church, the synagogue in Sophia. I mean, I'd want to say it's my favorite. I have so many favorites in this. He's an image of the synagogue, and she's holding the Ten Commandments written in Hebrew with like a spear, and she's blindfolded. And then you've got the new, religion on the block, Christianity, not blindfolded, with a crown, holding a goblet, with Sophia residing above them, holding two books. And the two books are closed, and the two books are referring to like esoteric mysteries, right? The book is closed, but it's above them. It's not even in this battle between these earthly, fight over who's right and who's wrong here. And then you have the serpent on the ground, just beautiful imagery. And so iconography, I guess you would say. And his images of Jesus Christ are just absolutely beautiful. I mean, the one that I have on my wall is of it's of the Apocrypha of Nicodemus. That's what it's based on. But it's Christ having died on the cross, descending into hell. So it has him descending into, or Tartarus, right? And he there's like the devil, or you could think of it as the devil per se. And then all the way on the right, it's Christ pulling the saints out of Hades, and throwing the devil, I guess, into hell. And my whole point in saying all that is it's just Christ that's in color. Everything's in black and white. And then Christ has a robe, and he has the sun around him in yellow with his robe in red. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful image. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this book review. I would give it a 10 out of 10 wholeheartedly. Go get it. Go get a couple copies. And anyways, I think there's even like a really, really nice edition coming onto the market. I wouldn't even have considered it. Now that I've read it, I might even get that book as well, if it's bigger, just so I can see the pictures a little more clearly. But anyways, please be sure to subscribe and like if it's your first time on the channel and you haven't done so, just so the algorithm knows to send you this way again. Thanks. Take care. God bless.